first question is directed. Oh yeah. Okay. Our first question is directed towards Mr. Stapleton-Gray, and it is from an individual asking for him to clarify why a teachers' union would want a less experienced school board.
Well, I think Charlie raises it rather a conundrum. Why not Charlie? Given, and I know Charlie is a compassionate, communicative sort of guy. I don't know. I would say this. Here was the sequence. A bunch of us all went presented to the ATA. They chose some endorsements. One of their endorsed candidates could not run, so they immediately turned around and made another endorsement. I don't know the mechanisms of the ATA's endorsement.
Sorry, I don't think the question was clear. We're asking why it would be good to have a less experienced.
Oh, so there's absolutely, I would say, with this administration, a fair amount of antagonism between the administration and the teachers. And for my part, I think I have been trying to make the administration more open and communicative. And I think the teacher's frustration with the administration leads to a frustration with the board. I could be wrong, but I suspect they'd rather not have this board, I guess. They're willing to have inexperienced board members because they don't want the current board to retain its seat.
So some board members discuss intentions to raise teacher salaries, but not all address the issues of funding. Would you cut programs or raise taxes to increase teachers' salaries? What programs would you cut? And with the budget cuts, would the music and arts programs be targeted?
And this is to whom?
This is to everyone. So we're starting, yeah.
Whoever feels most incentivized.
I can start. So we have an ability to do things like raise taxes. We absolutely have parcel taxes that are provided for teacher salaries. And putting another one on the ballot is not a trivial thing. At this point, the general sense is, and I've raised this often, that we will probably just replace Measure LL. We might even go for a larger one. But when we were doing construction bond discussions, when we passed a construction bond, we heard a lot of families that said this was pushing them to the breaking point, or that they would have to leave Albany as a result. So I don't know where we stand in terms of being able to tax ourselves more. I know the budget is in dire straits, and we will be losing positions even at the way we are. Raising teacher salaries might be really hard because every time we give a 1% raise, it would cost us more bodies. That's a huge discussion to have, though. It's not something I, as an individual board member, could decide. It's something that we, as the board, have to consider, having heard from the community.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're on the process here. I think, is this on? No.
There's a button.
Was it on?
Yeah, just hold that button down every time.
Is this on now?
Yeah.
All right. I did not say I was technically adept, I will note in my opening statement. I think that we need more funding. We need to renew, I think we need to renew the parcel tax at a higher amount. I think there are two key issues here. One is that we need, as Ross said, when people voted for the building bonds, and I think some of the confusion and lack of transparency and concerns about the delays with construction is going to make it hard for voters to approve more funding if they don't believe that the funding we have for the buildings is being well spent. So we got to work on that. Secondly, teachers also want to deliver quality programs and good programs. We need a process where we figure out how we make those trade-offs. I'm not going to identify programs I think I would cut at the expense in order to get teacher raises. I think we need to retain quality teachers, which means we need to be able to pay them more in order to maintain programs at the quality that we want to be able to offer them.
Okay, so we have 60 seconds on these. All right, here goes. In my experience over the years, I have never seen ATA push the district so hard as to result in draconian cuts. It just doesn't happen that way. People are looking for cost of living allowance kind of raises, 1%, 2%, 3% typically. And we do receive COLA from the state, so there is additional revenue coming in. We might disagree about the details. That's a matter for negotiations. We might disagree a little bit about a 0.5% here, 1% there. But typically when we're talking about these kinds of salary increases, we're talking about something that's basically cost of living.
I think that it's all connected. Definitely wouldn't want to cut any programs that are in place for students. The music program, arts programs are important. They help to students to explore their creativity. However, the cost of living in the Bay Area is high. The cost of living in Albany is high. A lot of teachers teach in Albany, but they commute in. And so I think that, it's all connected, right? You should make enough to be able to live in the city where you teach. That's not the case for all teachers currently, so I think that that's something that we should look at.
One way is we need to start organizing for 2020. Prop 13 is going to be revisited at the state level, and that's where we would have an opportunity to turn it, to reform that proposition to bring in more money from the corporations. What I understand, the way it's being written is not so that it's to further tax or to put tax back on property owners, but rather the corporations. So Apple and Google can give their fair share, and hopefully that'll mean big money here. Oh well, ideally in the state of California, if they don't take Apple and go overseas like they have in some instances. So anyway, I think it's both at the state level. All of us are going to have to work really hard to get that passed. And at the local level, once again, there's so many bright people in Albany. We need to work together to start resolving this at the local level.
Thank you. This is said by another person. I noticed a divide between candidates talking about social issues and speaking about the budget and logistics. But our schools need candidates who can address both of these issues. How can you be that candidate?
Start with. Sarah.
What was the very first, second word of your question?
That they noticed a divide between
divide.
social issues and logistics.
Well, I know a lot about finance. I spend a lot of time thinking about budgets. I research budgets. I think, although I don't know how to operate a microphone, I know how to do long-term financial planning. I'm technically adept when it comes to finance and management issues. And I believe that I have a pretty firm grasp on the need for the board to work on social issues and to set the standard for a different kind of society that we all aspire to, especially in the current climate. I've done a lot of work in this community on social issues, on trying to build coalitions between people who come from different backgrounds in order to address some of the dynamics in our district and in our schools. And I think I can encompass both of those aspects as a board member.
So when I first joined the board in 2004, one of the concerns I had was that the board was badly divided. It was split into factions. And what I tried to do was to help people bridge their differences, to get people to work together. Let's find common ground. It's something I do in other parts of my life. I'm happy to do that. It's a skill that, as a PTA chair of several PTAs, I did that. We helped parents work their concerns into district policy. On the budget question, I've been there before. I was on a district budget review and budget advisory committee many years ago. It's an area that I do know well. I think I can do both.
I don't claim to know everything about everything, but I think that is an important attribute of a leader, is understanding that you don't know everything, but that having the resources to figure out and research the things that you don't understand so that you can make informed decisions. I think that the current members of the board have a lot of information and they have a lot of facts because they've served on the board for a long period of time. I would hope that that information can be shared so that whether they're current members or new members of the board can share in that information and make the best decision for the district. I think as far as social issues, it's something that I deal with on a daily basis, and having that experience and bringing that to the board, I think will make the district better overall.
It sort of reminds me of a classroom in the high school where the teacher gives a project and you have to the students have to work on the project together, and all of a sudden you discover you have different skills. And that, I think, is similar to a board, where someone brings more of one than another skill set. And for example, I have, as a principal, I worked on budgets, but not at the tune of 45 million. And like Brian, social justice has been recurring in my life forever. So I think that you merge them, but you also, you take the best of the experience you have, and you also learn from other people who have more knowledge, more skills in other areas. So it's honestly a learning experience as well to be on the board. It's not people know everything.
Yeah, I absolutely have to agree with the candidates who said you don't have to be everything, you have to be your piece of the greater whole. And I think, which isn't to say that everyone up here hasn't got some experience across all of these areas, all right? I absolutely have learned an awful lot over the past 4 years in going through the issues of the Instagram thing, though I could tell you that social media was that threat long before that. I think we all bring a diverse set of things, and probably most important is we can listen to each other and be persuaded by each other, and I think I've always tried to do that on the board. My one concern about the proposal to elect a slate of non-board members is that would leave the board, if all three were elected, a cumulative 4 years experience across 5 people, which is far too little, I think, given the issues of the budget and construction, and the fact that we're inheriting years of something that folks like Charlie and myself have some past experience on. It's going down right now, starting.
Yeah, begin then. It's your turn.
So what can the school board do to support programs such as art and music that are experiencing budgeting cuts?
Well, we can start by not automatically cutting them. That's what happened the last go-round. I'm doing this okay, right? Yeah. Okay. They're part of our so-called local control accountability plan. It's the commitments we've made to the kind of program we're going to support. It's what supports the school. Art, music, counselors. We have a whole variety of positions that really are outside the classroom but provide for a well-rounded education. So I don't think I can answer a whole lot more in my 60 seconds, but let's not just fix our budget by slashing those positions. Let's have a thoughtful budget discussion. Let's look for other possibilities. Let's look at the places where we can make some adjustments that don't affect the educational program as much.
I think that art and music are important. I think that they help to shape the student overall. I am a little impartial to music personally. I played the trumpet in high school, and you know, I didn't think that it was going to come in handy. However, I went to one of my best friend's wedding, and the person that was supposed to play the instrument at the wedding was unable to do so. So I said, hey, you know, I used to play the trumpet a long time ago. And so I did a terrible job. However, that exactly happened, right? Everybody, you know, laughed and had a good time. But, you know, I took music, you know, in high school, and so, you know, was able to use that for that. And so I think that those programs help to shape you as a student. And so, you know, you can't cut those programs. We have to figure out alternative ways to support our students.
I had made some assumptions that they were already cut, that parents are the ones that have been working really hard, especially in the music area. And I think that, as people have already said, music, art, the performance arts, they help to expand your brain. And it's a part of the curriculum. It should be part of the curriculum, right? So once again, I think it is a thing of us having to really look deeply at this and figure out how can we work to sustain these programs creatively, however that is. I believe that almost anything's possible if we really set our minds to do it. But once again, it's going to require everybody to brainstorm and to give ideas for what we are going to do, because I certainly don't have the answer.
Yeah, so I'd say we unnecessarily sort of pigeonhole things in boxes, and so there's math here and English there and music here, and that's just absolutely not true. You know, math underlies music, and understanding music gives you an innate feel for math, right? All of these things integrate and percolate. I was hugely pleased to see Understanding Comics as one of the books in the English curriculum, because that is communication through art and various forms of non-text, non-verbal communication. So I would say, you know, music and art are education, and preserving as much as we can and balancing when we need to make cuts is the necessary thing.
I'll echo Charlie's saying, going back to how we make decisions about what programs to change or cut or modify in the budget balancing process that we need to go through, it's important that we don't make blanket decisions. We all know art and music are really important to education overall, and I'm glad that we finally have a budget committee that's going to help us think about how we make strategic decisions and suggest some things that we can take up as a board and as a community. And I also think that we have a history in this community of raising money to cover art and music in particular, and athletics. And the better job we can do having a sustainable long-term financial plan to deal with the budget cuts, the better we can then go on to work with our families to figure out how we fill the gap to continue to support those programs that we can't maintain with the current budget. We're done with that one. Now it's Brian's turn.
Okay, so before we go on to closing statements, we just would like to make some clarifications. So as Mr. Blanchard said, the superintendent does not get paid benefits, but she does make a total of $240,000. And so what Transparent does is it reduces $30,000, assuming that would be the amount paid for benefits. No? And then also to clarify the vaping question, It was asked particularly because there is an incredible rise in vaping, as well as the fact that it is done often in schools, as according to many of the interviews we conducted with students. So, in bathrooms, and so it seems to be particularly pertaining to many of the students' experiences at the high school. So we will now move on to closing statements. Starting with Mr. Stapleton-Gray.
I guess I'll be pretty short. I mean, I'll go back to what I said at the top of the show. It's hugely important to understand the role of a board. The board is oversight of the district. It's not the day-to-day management of it. What you would like in board members are people who can hear and understand the concerns and the issues and align them with facts. And it is a delight when someone brings to me facts, when they say, here's what I'm experiencing in my kid's education, and that their PE class has them do this, is that right? Okay, when I get someone saying, here's a concrete example of an issue, and I can compare and align that with what Ed Code requires of us, or what the state law is, or what the budget allows, that's a great thing. Okay? When people come and yell at the board because they're concerned, not as productive as when we can talk, and when you all bring to us issues and facts. So I would say what you want in a board member is someone who can shine that flashlight of truth on what is happening. What is the administration doing? What is it allowed to do per law, per policy? During the Instagram affair, we absolutely could have said far more than we did. And I was doing legwork to figure out what it is we could do, and I was hitting walls, and I will keep at it. If we have incidents like that going forward, this incident of the last week was poorly, I think, handled by the administration and not communicating more with the students. People directly affected by it, who then immediately started talking about it amongst themselves, armed with fewer facts than I wish they had. So I guess I'd like your vote as someone who believes the role of the board is in oversight and trying to increase transparency and attending to the biggest issues we've got, budget construction and keeping the district afloat.
So I'm going to tell a little story that I heard this morning. There is a town still there in Alabama called Albertville, where there was a huge influx of immigrants and a lot of drama about new people in the community, a lot of upheaval, a lot of drama at the city council, a lot of fighting, complaints by people who live there forever compared to the immigrants, misunderstandings, fears about losses of jobs. And there's a show about this, and half of it is about all the tumult in the city. The other half is about how, meanwhile, the school district, the teachers, the school board, the students were building the community that they wanted. They were building the future of that town in which immigrants lived for generations, in which the local people transformed along with the newcomers. I want Albany School District to be able to play that role in our community. And I do think that it is the role of the school board to set the tone for that. It is the role of the school board to reflect what the teachers and the students are already doing in the classroom to create the world that we all want to live in the future. And I understand the limitations of the board's role, but I also believe that we have a lot of potential here that is unrealized for board members to take a leadership role in creating the world that we want with the help of the teachers and the students who are already doing it.
So I'm going to end by inviting everyone to attend the school board meeting. That's where the business of the school district gets done, in an open public session. And we welcome public input and public comment when we have matters for discussion or matters for decision. It's really something that's part of the communication and outreach process. We can't necessarily do the communication as well as we would like, but we can do it a lot better when people participate in a public discussion at a board meeting. We had a great meeting last week when we talked about the different options for housing Ocean View students during construction. The superintendent presented 4 options. We had lots of parents who provided a great deal of input on what they preferred and what they didn't prefer. One thing became very clear. No one wanted to delay that process. We all wanted to move forward. And so in that kind of dialogue back and forth between the board and members of the public that could take place during a board meeting in an open public setting, you can arrive at a consensus, you can arrive at a pathway forward. Board meetings are televised in real time. They're also archived, so they are available for everyone to see that discussion. But I would encourage all of you to come and participate. You have 2 student board members. They can represent you. One was waiting. And we really appreciate their input. They really bring us a good day-to-day kind of view of what's important at Albany High, and we listen to them. So welcome to the board meetings. Hope you come.
I wanted to close by saying a few things that I've been thinking about. One, I think that as a board member, it's important to work together with everybody in the community. It's important to work with city council. It's important to work with students, teachers, principals. And the way that you do that is you have to be somebody that's approachable. You have to be somebody that you can go into a room and you can have conversations with people and you can collaborate and come to real solutions. I think that it's also important to remember while we're all here, we want to make sure we put the students first. Their education is important. Albany schools are great schools, and it's all connected, right? People want to move to Albany because the schools are really good. The houses are really expensive in Albany because the schools are really good. The rent for apartments is really high because the schools are really good, which is why you can rent a 2-bedroom, 1-bath with the same windows that have been there since I was in 9th grade for $3,000 because the schools are really good. So we want to make sure that we remember that it's all connected and that we want to make sure that we remember how important it is for our students to receive a great education. And the way that they do that is by having the support from every level, all the way from the board, all the way down to the janitorial staff. Everybody plays a part in the students being successful. And I want to end with, I don't want to be a board member that makes excuses. I want to be a board member that makes change.
For the students, I would like to just sort of just reflect on the skills that you're going to need, not just the trigonometry, the calculus, and the literature, but other skills that hopefully you are getting day in and day out. Critical thinking, or thinking outside the box, problem solving, that you are really lifelong learners, that you're creative in your problem solving, that you have great communication skills. And that just doesn't mean the talk, but it means really listening to others, and your ability to work with others. Resiliency. I think I certainly pampered my sons, but resiliency is something you need to be strong, so that when those moments come up of a problem in your life or a hurt in your life, that you're going to be able to bounce back because you're strong and resilient and you believe in yourself. And the last is, well, there could be lots more, but empathy and compassion, that you really can step into the shoes of another, but at the same time you'll take that further step and do something about it. Challenge yourself to not only feel for somebody, but to help them out. And lastly, I think board members need to be more proactive. I think that was part of the problem a couple of years ago, and I think people have learned though, and that's what it really is all about, whether you're 16 years old, 17 years old, or whether you're 70 years old, for some people, that you know, that we're all learning, and that's what lifelong learning is all about. So hopefully we're in this together for the long haul, and that we can support each other as we go into more difficult days ahead.
So let's give a round of applause to our candidates. So thank you for coming to the Student Run Candidates Forum. We appreciate your commitment to community issues, and we would also like to give a special thanks to Mr. James. Many of our interviewees and the custodial staff. We hope you've garnered new information that can help you when you hopefully vote, if you can, of course. So thank you for coming, and have a good evening.